What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you a good summary of our Q3 earnings, go over the good, the bad, and the ugly, and at least what we can expect from Lucid in the short term. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Always greatly appreciated. And with that, let's get right to it. So as far as actual production numbers, we already knew this. They came out a couple of weeks prior to the earnings, but 2,282 vehicles produced, 1,398 delivered. So that definitely is a pretty good improvement. They did also say that they can produce up to 300 vehicles a week. And when I did live stream this, you saw both ends. So you see some people that are very happy about that and some are very negative. I like to see that as very optimistic. They are showing improvement, although in order for them to achieve their 2023 goals, they do need to really still ramp up. So again, that works out to be around 42 vehicles a day. At least I think they need to get around 55 to 60 a day, but that's just my own interpretation. Keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own due diligence at the end of the day. But when it comes down to the production and delivery numbers, there was a question posed by retail about the exact same thing. So it looks like there's around 1,000 cars that have been produced and not delivered. Why is that? And so Peter did say that it's basically a lag between production and getting the cars out to customers, dear customers as what he calls them. But at the end of the day, I think that's a very good answer potentially, but Adam Jonas did actually surprise us and give us an appearance. And just to put that in perspective, so this is the Q1 earnings. We only had 3 analysts that did join us. Q2, we had 3 analysts. We had, I believe, it was either 6 or 7, most likely around 7, but Adam Jonas did surprisingly join us. Again, he's from Morgan Stanley, always been very bearish on Lucid, and surprisingly enough, to give him credit, he did ask a very good question. It was in relation to this. So he said, well, you're ramping up in 2023. How do you plan on rectifying this lag? Or else technically, if you're just continuously ramping up, how are you ever going to fix this problem? And unfortunately, because as of right now, the transcripts for those kind of Q&As are not out, so I can't really quote it word for word. But I did not like Peter and Sherry's response to that. They were just going back and forth saying that they're going to be trying to rectify the situation through various means. But at the end of the day, if they are kind of lagging and having this issue with 1,000 vehicles, imagine when they ramp up production. So again, that's one of those things to give a good hat off to Adam Jonas, even though he does not really like Lucid. That was a very good question in my opinion. Like I always say, I like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so continuing on though, they did actually reiterate that they're going to be maintaining their 6,000 to 7,000 vehicles. So again, that's a very good sign. Keeping in line with this overall 300 a week, they can definitely do that. So hopefully that's a very positive sign. Keeping in line with production. So I'm going to try and orient it to where I'm talking about production first and so forth, and then move to financials and various other things. So another question was potentially posed about this exact same thing. And it says right here, what is your production targets for 2023? And absolutely, if you saw my reaction to this on my live stream, it was not good. And it says that we will not be providing detailed outlook for 2023 today. So definitely that is not a good sign. And previously it is around 49,000. That was their original forecast for 2023. So the fact that they're not doing that definitely is not good in my opinion. So when it comes down to that though, that's going to lead into a good transition, because leading into this, they said that they had strong demand with 34,000 reservations. Once again, there was 2 analysts that did kind of call them out, saying that this is not considered strong demand, because hypothetically in Q2, it was 37,000. Of course, they did get rid of some reservations because they actually produced and delivered some vehicles, but there was also some cancellations. Keep in mind, if you factor all of that in, we did not increase on reservations whatsoever. So where are they getting this strong demand from? So definitely a lot of good analysts did come out and they actually called out Peter's BS. And as I've always said in a lot of earnings, Peter likes to just skip around the actual questions, and that is one negative of Lucid. I still absolutely love Lucid, still holding long term, but definitely Peter and the management team need to fix that. You can't just skip around questions. So I really like the analysts that did join us. So hopefully that does continue into Q4 and so forth, because I think this is how we improve, because having a lot of good questions from retail stands and from analysts will get the answers that we truly need. So they did call them out, and ultimately it does show that basically the Sapphire was a bust. Plain and simple, they didn't technically say that, but there was an analyst that did say it's based on Q2 earnings, as far as them saying that hypothetically all the reservations were for the peer, and now that we come into Q3 with basically no increase in reservations, aka that means the Sapphire was a bust. As I've unfortunately said in a lot of videos, Lucid does not need to do that. That was a waste of time and resources, and at the end of the day, they could be focusing on actual mass production. My own opinion, obviously, in that circumstance, but again, it's one of those things that I don't know why they decided to say strong demand, because that's not necessarily the case. But keep in mind, if they are going back to this question, this was a little bit more of a long looped answer, but what's the production target for 2023? They need to maintain at least, hypothetically, 34,000 for reservations, plus the 2,000 that is guaranteed for this KSA actual agreement that they did up to 100,000 vehicles. They need to do 1,000 to 2,000 vehicles every single year for the 10 years, give or take, as long as they decide to extend it. So hypothetically, I would absolutely need to hear them say their production targets for 2023 is at least the full reservations plus that 2,000. At least on the bare minimum. If anything less than that, you're going to have a lot of cancellations. Even as what Sherry did say, that there was a lot of reservations that were canceled because they didn't want to wait. Imagine some of these reservations being pushed back another year. That is just going to be detrimental to Lucid. So they need to get on top of that. As far as the Gravity, there was a lot of anticipation with the launch event that most likely they were going to open up reservations possibly on that day, which is on November the 15th. But it does look like they pushed the Gravity as far as reservations to open in early 2023. That's still a pretty good sign for that they are maintaining that. So let me know your thoughts on that. 3.85 billion in cash equivalent short-term investments. So in reality, that's pretty good. Based on Q2, I'll just give you a good breakdown of what that is. So based on Q2, it does look like they had 4.29 billion. So definitely they are burning less as far as cash. So their CapEx was lower compared to Q2. So that is always a good sign. Shows that they are being a little bit more efficient, if you want to call it that, with their money. So let me know your thoughts on that. Overall, some additional questions I was posed by retail, because I really like some of these questions as well. It talked on overall, when are they planning to start building and utilizing the railway transportation in Casa Grande? Because again, that would cut on cost quite a lot. And Sherry did provide a pretty good answer. Peter did step in as well, but it doesn't give any actual concrete information. It ultimately says that they're going to pursue it when they ramp up production. So that is negative in my opinion, at least. But again, let me know your thoughts on this. Keep in mind, this is an open forum. You guys can always call me out in the comments below if you completely disagree. This is why Lucid is a very long-term investment, and I could be wrong on some of my viewpoints. This is why I'm not a financial advisor, and these videos are for entertainment purposes only. But again, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. Maybe if you contradict or completely disagree with some point of mine, I am open to it. Definitely being that way. But again, just moving on, I'm trying not to bounce back and forth because there was a lot said, especially more so from analysts. And on a side note, and I feel that Peter and Sherry, they normally kind of stay back and are withdrawn. They say things very vague. Maybe that's on purpose. But there is one thing that they did disclose, and it was associated to this question. So normally they do only answer the 3 questions. I don't know if they felt bad or maybe just wanting to talk a little bit more. So they did ask several other questions. So as far as the CarPlay, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon, but they will provide updates. That's something, I guess, a positive thing. And then there was this question. I completely, I think I laughed when Peter answered this question. So the report of Q3 deliveries and confirmation of 2022 delivery targets was helpful. Going forward, does Lucid plan to provide more transparency to investors between earnings calls? And so Sherry stepped in as usual. Any difficult type of question, they usually do kind of step in, and she helps quite a lot. She's definitely very, very underpaid. But it does say, so it's our intention to release our production and delivery numbers each quarter ahead of earnings and the hope of providing greater transparency. So at the end of the day, I think this is a very common thing. Management just clearly does not understand the questions. They're saying, are they going to be providing more transparency to investors between earnings calls? Meaning, what are you doing at a studio? Provide us an update. This is not an answer, Sherry. Plain and simple. So I think even more so, this has been a very ongoing issue, is just management cannot answer questions. I don't know, maybe they just are so busy in their head that they don't really listen to the answer, they don't interpret it. Like, they do not answer, like, this isn't an answer. It's our intention to release our production delivery numbers each quarter ahead of earnings and the hope of providing greater transparency. So again, that's just BS. In reality, a lot of other EVs came out with their production numbers well before their earnings. So Lucid is just following suit. They're following those EVs. They're not doing anything different. They're not doing anything special. They got called out because I saw a lot of comments, even on my own videos on Twitter and everything like that. People were like, why is Lucid not doing this? And I've noticed over the last little bit, Lucid is a little bit more active on Twitter, so they are listening. So if you guys ever have questions or concerns, let Lucid know. They are clearly, someone out there is listening to some regard. So, but at the end of the day, this is a very poor answer if you ask me. Again, I like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. No matter what though, I'm still very optimistic on that. There was unfortunately one question that just kind of hit home and hit my heart really badly. It does suck in the grand scheme of things. I'm just trying to find it. So like I said, they did answer some additional questions. They did actually answer this question. I don't know why they don't signal it as answered. So do you guys plan on making cheaper cars like Tesla in the future? So Peter did answer, and funny enough is maybe this is why they don't want to actually have the answer out there fully for everyone to see, because it was very negative. So we already are very anticipated and excited for that mid-size SUV, which is going to be around that $50,000 price point. And again, that's going to be a massive demand. Clearly the market and reservations all signal that they want a lower price vehicle, especially more so SUVs are extremely hot right now. So that mid-size SUV would be an absolutely big, huge, massive thing for Lucid. But Peter did say in this actual answer that instead of it being mid-decade, it's going to be later in the decade. So meaning they're pushing that back. Nobody caught on to this, and clearly this is exactly why they did not answer this question, or at least signal this as answered. My heart sunk when they said that, and that really, really does suck. So again, let me know your guys' thoughts on that in the comments below. Clearly, they are burning less cash, which is always a fairly good sign, but they did technically have a little bit more of a dilution. So during and included in this earnings, they did have a $600 million issuance. So again, this is very much known information. If you guys listen to a lot of my videos, I did say that they had until around Q3 2024, so sufficient cash up until then, but most likely it was going to be in Q1 is when they would actually have to dilute. In their actual earnings, they do say fourth quarter 2023, but I disagree with that. But again, neither here nor there. Regardless, they did a little bit more of a dilution. Not a positive sign for Lucid, 600 million. Over and above that though, one positive sign that could be interpreted though is right here. So technically they did announce that Lucid is offering the PIF up to $915 million to, as far as back up the bus, so have an additional investment in Lucid. So that could be a very positive sign if you ask me. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Like I said, this earnings was very interesting, especially more so when they come out with this info, even this highlighted info, which is in reality could be seen as a pretty good, easily biased viewpoint, so very targeted towards their pros, because I noticed on here they do not even talk on debt. So their debt did go up a significant amount compared to Q2 as well. So Q2 total debt was 2.24 billion, and as of right now, even though that is a majority of which very low cost financing up until 2026, so 2.2 of that is that low cost financing. But as far as their debt, I do believe, I'm just going to pop over here, so total liabilities 3.6 billion. So they definitely did increase their debt aspect quite a lot, and that isn't anything low cost finance. That's straight up just pure significant debt. Most likely it is on that rotational line of credit that they did have with, I think they called themselves the syndicate of banks. It was like roughly about 7 different banks. So again, let me know your thoughts on all of this. I could be talking for hours and hours about this. Overall though, what can we expect from Lucid? Well, clearly a ramp up in production. So that's plain and simple what we need. And luckily enough, our actual revenue and earnings per share, you notice I probably didn't talk on this in this video because I am under the impression, and my own opinion at least, is that Lucid in this day and age right now, them being a newer company, earnings per share and revenue aren't that big of a deal. On the contrary though, what we care as investors is the growing demand for reservations and deliveries and so forth. And assuming that there's no supply chain issues or whatever it might be. But again, this is why I didn't necessarily talk on as far as revenue or anything like that. Let me know your thoughts on that. Reservations a little bit more mixed. I would like to see that a little bit higher. I did give actual estimates before the earnings did come out where I was projecting around 45,000, which that would have been pretty good if you ask me. But 34 does show a stagnant amount of reservations. And unfortunately, based on all the stats out there, it does look like a lot of other EV makers is going up in demand. So again, that shows maybe a little bit more of an underlying issue with Lucid, but no matter what though, we are ramping up on production. We do have a little bit more cash on hand now with that dilution, and potentially the PIF, which again will never let us fail, is possibly increasing their position in Lucid as well. So again, a win-win for us as investors. So let me know your thoughts on that, and also let me know if there's some aspect of the earnings that maybe stood out to you that I didn't really touch on or anything like that, because like I said, this earnings I feel like was all over the place. They've talked on like 50 different things, all of which in reality are very important, but kind of all piggyback off of each other. So it's was a very interesting earnings. And no matter what though, I think one positive sign is the fact that we got so many analysts. So roughly about 7 analysts. That goes to show that we are at a very substantial discount. And also a lot of analysts were waiting for us to ramp up on production. So hopefully we do get a little bit more positive analyst ratings. Most likely it will come in neutral though, but let me know your thoughts. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Greatly appreciate that. If you do like my channel, want to support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that, appreciate you guys watching. Let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.